3. Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences, present In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and today I'm joined by author, journalist, and bullshitter, Jonathan Ancer. This is his new book. It's called Bullshit, 50 Fibs That Made South Africa. And it is exactly what it says on the tin, to quote a British colloquialism. It's an outrageous miscellany of lies, myths, untruths, fibs, and fabrications. Jonathan, good morning and welcome to you.
Thanks very much, David, and thanks for having me.
It's only a pleasure. This book is exactly that. It is just, it's all the bullshit we've ever been fed and we believe, and I want to start sort of towards the end, and then we'll go back to the beginning with load shedding. I mean, we've had 16 days of no load shedding now. Is that coincidence because we've got elections coming up shortly? I don't think so. Because come the 31st of May, load shedding will return with a vengeance.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we've heard over and over again politicians saying, read my lips, no more load shedding.
Yeah.
And, in 18 months' time, there will be no such thing as load shedding. And this was said 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And so, and suddenly, as you point out, we have no load shedding, which perhaps could be a coincidence. But it feels like maybe it isn't. And I think that's, you won't be surprised to know that a lot of the sort of bullshitters in the book are politicians.
You're funny. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so either. But you picked up on that, 18 months, 5 years, 15 minutes, whatever the timeline is. And I think there is just every guy that chairs ESCOM is just given a script. And the timeline, they say to him, just insert your own timeline here, because it's never going to happen. So you can make yourself sound as good or as bad as you wish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
so let's. You see, I've now done a stupid thing. I've blended the background, so people now can't see the cover of the book.
Should I show my cover?
Yeah, there you go. So talk me through the book, because there are things that I'd forgotten about, like that stupid plant culture that we all went, we're going to make a fortune out of Quibus called tea. And all it was fruit, milk, and the gentleman concerned made a fortune and then vanished. How did you structure the book? Did you, together with the guys involved, go, okay, so let's start, this will be story number 1, and then we'll work through, or did you just mix and match stories?
It was, so when I started, it was actually the idea from the book, for the book, came from the publisher, Jeremy Barain at Jonathan Ball.
Right.
And he phoned me up one day and he said, let's meet for coffee. I have an idea. And he said he wanted to, he said the idea of the book was telling South Africa's history, but through the lies. And I thought this was such an interesting angle, such an interesting perspective. We've had lots of sort of, kind of looks at our past, but we've never looked at the past through the lies that we've been told. And so I said, yes, I'd love to do it. And we came up with, we thought, what's a good number? And we thought 50 is kind of, a good enough number, but we could have told maybe 150.
I was about to say, there's a series here. As I was reading,
there's a series. It could be a never-ending job,
Yeah, you for the rest of your life, Jonathan. You never need write another book or print another article. And I had, you say, why the number? Well, there's 50 ways to leave your lover, as Paul Simon would sing. And in this case, it's 50 ways to lie to a nation and be believed. This is the scary thing about these. Each of the people or each of the stories that you tell, and there are 50 of them, obviously. we all believed them at the time. But now I wonder if some of them, given when they took place, if they were done now, if we would have been even more hoodwinked by them,
Yeah,
because mainstream media, all they've got to say is, like yesterday, the Daily Maverick closed for the day to make a point about journalism. But that wasn't the point. People were going, "Oh, the Daily Maverick's closed," and everybody's
yeah,
going,
yeah,
"Oh, gosh, gosh darn, I'm so sad the newspaper's folded," but it hasn't. But
yeah, yeah.
nobody reads to the end of a story, to the
Yes,
end of
yeah,
an email anymore.
yeah. We've got such a short attention span these days,
I'm
and
sorry, who are
I
you and why are you talking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, everything is bite-sized and
Yeah,
bullets and it is quite sad that because I think we lose a lot of the nuance and a lot of the complexity and a lot of
we
the background because we're not reading or we're not uh, sort of kind of just seeing the whole big picture, all the
yeah.
context.
My
And I
my
think that is
child tells
sad.
me that I dwell in an alternative news world because I'll see
Yeah.
a headline and then I'll make up a story. I won't read the and I'll make up a story based on the headline. And invariably it's 100% incorrect because headlines
Yeah,
are just clickbait now. They just want
that's
you
right.
to
Yeah.
read the story, and whatever's in the headline is the last line of an article. If you're reading on your phone, it takes you 40 minutes to scroll through, and you're really
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah, yeah. And I think
the
that is what people do. They just see the headline,
Yeah,
decide what the story is, and then fight with each
move
other.
on. The other thing,
Yeah.
reading through the book, and I know that you and I had been in contact before we've done this discussion, and I did say to you it's going to become toilet reading in the best sense, and that's where it lives now. It lives in the toilet. I leave my phone wherever it is, and when I go to the toilet, I dip into the book because it doesn't need to be read in a linear manner. You can
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
flip through the book and pick a card, any card, pick a story, any story. But as I was reading through it, I was wondering if you had a team of a legal team that you passed each story through, going, how much trouble am I going to get into if? Because I seem to remember there's a story about Jimmy Abbott, and I have a sneaking suspicion he's dead because you
Yes,
don't
yeah.
want a man that size knocking on your door.
There was some concern, around legal issues, around defamation. I mean, we're calling people liars, which is defamatory.
Yeah.
Um, and they did, the publisher did check a number of the chapters, not all of
Mm.
them, but some of them with lawyers, and the lawyers felt that it was okay.
Right.
Um, the sort of the definition of defamation is to reduce a person's reputation in the eyes of reasonable people. And then you kind of look at what these people have done and you think, well, they deserve to have lost their reputation.
Yeah. Now, I forgot because I made notes, which I don't normally do. And I should have asked you if you'd like to carry on this conversation in Sindarin, because I believe you speak Elvish.
Maybe that was one of the fibs.
Ah,
The 51st fib.
50th. Because I went away, I started looking up Sindarin. There's another Elvish language, which is the more formal one, called Quenya. Um, but then it got far too complicated and I left it at that. Do you have a favorite story in the book? One that when they said, when Mr. Borain said to you, I can't think of his first name now.
Jeremy. Yeah.
Jeremy. I'm thinking Nikki Borain, Alex Borain, the
Yes, I
rest
think
of
they're
the family,
brothers. Yeah.
except Jeremy. When he said to you, this is the idea, what was the first story that popped into your head, the first fib that you would hang on a second? Mine would have been Shabir Sheikh because the man is still alive.
Yeah.
He's a walking medical miracle.
Yeah. There's my favorite story is very different from the first story that I wrote.
Right.
So the first story that I wrote, I went on a bit of a Google binge, and I spoke to a couple of historians, and the tone of the book did change after we came up with, or after I got an email from Jeremy saying we had a little discussion, and we think the title "Bullshit" would be a good title for the book. And up until that moment, I'd been quite it had been quite a serious project. And I was thinking of it as a sort of from the perspective of a kind of historian,
Right.
although I'm not a historian, but that's what I was trying to tackle it as. But when we decide, well, I was told that the title's going to be bullshit. I thought, well, that actually freed me up a bit, and I could tackle it from the perspective of a journalist.
Mm.
But the first story that I wrote was on the Hertzogis, those little tartlets, and I found it so interesting that these little tartlets were named after J.B. J.M.B. Herzog,
Yes.
and that whole history of how it came to be that he got this tartlet, and the hypocrisy and the betrayal that was involved. And I've just thought that this is such a South African rich story, and that sort of got me on
I,
on the board.
I have
But
to tell you that Herzog's are my favorite baked good.
oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
I worked with an Afrikaans singer for 11 years, and I'm not going to mention him by name just now. But there were audience members who kept bringing him Herzog's every night and for
Yeah.
every show, and he wouldn't share them. And I explained this to them, and I said, we're going to start stealing his cookies. And from then on, for 10 years, they brought us, the entire crew, cookies or some sort of baked goods every single production.
Oh,
So,
brilliant.
so
Yeah.
Herzog has got us snacks. So I'm not going to knock them. And that's no bullshit.
But my favorite story that I was about the prophet who resurrected poor Elliot. And I just think if there is a lie,
It's
it's
that
the
one.
kind of claim that you can bring somebody back from the dead. But the
Yeah.
whole I went down a whole lot of rabbit holes, and looking and getting into the whole sort of kind of the miracles that these prophets perform, and it was just intriguing.
But
I love that story.
don't you also remember that prophet who sprayed doom on people?
Yes, yes, yeah, and he does make an appearance
He did it.
in
The
the book.
prophet of
Yeah,
doom, I think
the
you
prophet
referred
of
to
doom,
him.
and the prophet who phoned God during a service,
With the
and the
selfie.
prophet who took a selfie with God.
But you know
I mean, it was
what
all, yeah.
that is pure bullshit. I mean, you and I
Yes.
know this. Just looking at it, you pick up the book, you open to that story, you go, oh yeah, I remember this. How gullible are his flock, so to speak. But then you look at Reverend Jim Jones, who told all those people all those years ago, drink the Kool-Aid, and they did,
Yeah.
and they all
Yeah.
died. And those sort of cult figures and people in positions of power like that, who are dealing with maybe a congregation that is not au fait with how those sort of things work. It's easy to send around a plate, and because I've seen it done in stadiums where the guy's got to the point and he's got 80,000 people ready and willing, and he goes, my flock will be walking amongst you, and I only take paper money.
Mm,
And if you give me coins, I'm going to know who you are, and you will
mm.
be haunted. So the
Yeah.
minimum donation, the minimum he got was 80K.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there is a sort of sadder kind
Yeah.
of understory, and that's about the desperation of people, because there's this you know, in order to be successful, you need to give money. It's, you know,
Yeah.
this sort of prosperity message that you know, that they're spreading. And of course, people want to get out of their poverty, and
Yeah.
they see this as a
As a
way.
way. Yeah.
Yeah,
You see
yeah,
them at the casinos at 2 o'clock in the morning, putting
yeah,
their bread and milk money into a machine, hoping that they're going to be able to pay the rent, and then they end up with absolutely nothing. Those
yeah.
machines do not give willingly. They don't.
No, the
Are
house
there
always wins. Yeah.
always wins?
Yeah.
If only they'd learn. But the other stories in the book, are there ones that made you sad when you look back over them and go, how were you hoodwinked like that? You know,
Yeah.
Jacob Zuma playing the "oh, I'm also sick" card. I'm waiting for Donald Trump to get halfway through his trial and go, "oh no, I'm dying. I can't sit in this courtroom anymore," because I do believe there's a backstory to him and Jacob Zuma, rightly or wrongly, and I think maybe that could be the beginnings of a book for you. Is how often do Donald and Jacob actually talk to each other and compare notes? How are you getting away with fill in the blank? So are there stories that have made you sad? Are there stories that, looking back on them, like when we were all hoodwinked with the milk? Why
Yeah,
did we believe
yeah.
in that? If we sent ground powder, it's a pyramid scheme of,
It's a absolute pyramid scheme,
and
and
and no
it's a classic pyramid scheme. It was
and
one of
nobody
the,
seems to realize this.
yeah,
Nobody,
yeah.
and at
Yeah,
the end,
I think it's talks to people's desperation. You know, this
it's
is
pure
my way.
greed.
It's greed. Yeah, yeah. You know,
Are
this is
there?
how I can make some money.
Well,
And
this is it.
yeah, I think that the story that really made me sad, I suppose, was the Hansi Cronje story, because I was such a big fan of his,
Yeah,
and I think, you know, when the kind of the allegations surfaced, I just laughed them off, and I thought,
yeah,
no, this is not
can't be.
this is not true. It's anybody else, even John T. Rhodes, you know, but not Hansi. Not, there's no way.
Yeah,
And then it was just like, you know, I felt betrayed. I think we all felt
yeah.
betrayed. You know, he was such an icon for the country. You know, sort of, I think, loved by Mandela, loved by, you know,
Everybody. We
everybody.
all did.
We wanted to be him. You
Yeah.
know? And then
I was
suddenly he
on a
was,
radio station the morning he died, and I had an
yeah,
afternoon show, and at 11 o'clock, my station manager called me and said, listen, you have to change your show. You can't do the sports show, the joviality that you usually do. You've got to do a 3 hour tribute to Hansi. And I said, well, can I start off by saying, does death forgive you your earthly sins? And he went, you
yeah,
can't. The man's not even cold, and you're already starting your nonsense. So I said, can I
yeah,
do that on my Sunday show? And he said, you can do it on Sunday. But
yeah,
I remember that there was so much hype about Hansi. So that when I started my show, I said, let's just take a moment to remember the pilots and their families, because they too died. But we were all
yeah,
so focused on the man in the back that we didn't see them.
yeah,
It's sad that that's what happens when there is a celebrity of any sort, celebrity, politician, sports person. That's where the focus lies, and not on the other people who were on the plane or in the buildings or whatever the case might be.
yeah.
50 stories, all well and good, but how did you cull these? Because you didn't go, okay, I'm going to do these 50. You probably did, I'm going to do these 75, or I've got 100 stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's sit down. And how do you, I'm always fascinated, Jonathan, by writers who are able to almost self-edit and go, okay, that's great, but this is better. It's a good story, but it doesn't really read well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started out really speaking to people and casting the net out wide, and
Mm.
kind of, and you know, some of the lies I think are quite obvious ones. Um, and then, you know, I really wanted a mix. I wanted a mix of humor, of seriousness, of anger, ancient, and also some that are creeping into the present. So I just really wanted a mix. I did probably have about 100 lies, and then some of them morphed into each other so that I could take three lies and bash them into one story. Some didn't work out. And then there's always the deadline, and you have to meet the deadline. So that's the best editing tool we've got.
Indeed.
Is the deadline.
Yeah.
At some point you've got to hand the manuscript in.
Yeah.
I
also go ahead.
So I had my 50 lies, and I sent them to Jeremy, and I thought, well, while he's reading them and I'm waiting for feedback, I'm sure he's going to cross one or two of them off, and I've got some others backed up.
Yeah.
But he was happy with them, which was
is great.
Yeah.
The one that interested me is that there are no sacred cows in this book, because you even tackle Madiba, and there's a brave writer who can put Madiba into a book of bullshit. But it's there.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I thought, how dare you? I met the man, I interacted with him, I really enjoyed being in his company, and he was an icon. And it got to a point where if Mother Teresa could have been a saint, then Madiba should have been one as well. But he did have his foibles, and he did have feet of clay. And at the end, I suppose it's all summed up by that ridiculous interpreter that was at his funeral, because we were on a cruise when it happened, and my wife is hearing impaired, and I said to her, "What is that sign? What is the interpreter saying?" And I think he may have given you the title of your book, because she said, "He's talking bullshit."
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose there's bullshit in all of us, and I think that's kind of the thing that I learned from writing this book.
Yeah.
Is we all tell lies, and we're all full of bullshit, and some just more than others, and some use their bullshit for good, and some for
not so good. But that guy, he cracked quite a good deal there, because he was paid a large amount of money to sort of go cockroach stapler, barking dog, or whatever he did.
Yeah. And it was actually also kind of, I started out thinking, oh, this is going to be one of the very humorous ones. And as I sort of found out a bit more, it actually turned also quite sad. I mean, the person was mentally disabled, as it turns out, and
they put him on the same stage as Bill Clinton.
Yeah, and Barack Obama and all the world leaders.
All the world's leaders. Interesting. Let's go back to, I happen to open now at Shabir's story, 15 years at death's door. How much, and here again, the ineffable, I love it, EFF, able flip-flopper. My goodness me, has Julius flip-flopped. I will kill for you. I will kill you. I'm not going to kill anybody. If there is a cause, he takes both sides. Monday it's pro, Tuesday it's con.
Both sides in the same sentence.
Exactly. And never the twain shall meet. But there again, if you go back to the people who follow him, and I suppose in a way we can tie it back to the Republicans in America. Trump says the elections were stolen, and all the Republicans go, yes, they were. Julius steps up and goes, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And all the people he'll go, I want solar power for every house. And the people go, yes, we do. How he's going to do it is neither here nor there. That is just we'll figure it out when I get into power. And then the load shedding will just continue. But now there's a case where you're not worried about him. coming back at you and going, I read your book. Or there's a knock at your door and there are big guys in dark suits going, our leader wants to talk with you.
I don't think so. I've never really been worried about anything that I've written. And I have, sort of working as a journalist over the years, you do have to write stories where
Right.
people are happy with you, and but I think that's just part of the job. And I mean, he has tackled, or he has confronted, or he has targeted, maybe is the better word,
Yeah.
sort of journalists before, but he seems to go after kind of women journalists,
Yeah.
doesn't seem to
He looks for the weak in the herd, and then tackles the back runners, because that's the easier for him, rather than trying to tackle somebody who would possibly stand up to him. Are you not sad that the book is out now and didn't perhaps come out on the 29th when the elections were running? So this could have been used as the handbook for all the parties.
Well, what I'm hoping is that this will sort of sharpen voters' minds and encourage them to turn on their bullshit detector. So when a politician says something, they can call bullshit.
Yeah, but we go back to that. The here's another one. Johnny Allen and the Nazi. Bless her, knocking on a door to see Mr. What was his name? I interviewed the man. Eugene de Blanche, yeah, in his green underwear and his piercing eyes. And if you've ever spoken to the man, he has the most incredible voice. He has a voice that a radio person like myself, I said to his face, I said, if I could steal your voice, I would. Because he was a very interesting interview. And we all remember this. And Johnny is now, unfortunately, shuffled off the mortal coil. Maybe she's knocking at his heavenly door, constantly going, show me your underwear. Again, well, he was a politician, she was a journalist. Are there stories in here that people who are watching us chat this morning are going, yeah, but that's all well and good, but the whole book is full of politicians. I want to hear about real people.
Yeah.
So are there those stories to placate those hordes?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's scams kind of by real people.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have a look through it. There's the whole there's quite a few sports fibs that
I was
we were
just about, because I'm
told.
holding them open, having run comrades myself.
Oh yeah,
I know
yeah.
about
Wow.
these two guys, but there was also there was a twin, the Bantam brothers. They did exactly the same thing. They
Oh
ran
wow.
full marathons and each just ran a half, and their times were spectacular. But here in this particular comrades, it was the watch that
Yes,
caught him
yeah.
out. And the other one that you pick on, because I see we're running out of time, we're down to the last sort of 5 or 6 minutes of our chat, was again, you've tackled this 16 days of crocodile tears, talking about 16 days of activism. And you're a brave man for doing that, because here again is something that our politicians have gone, right, this is what we're doing for women. And the moment the 16 days start, it almost seems as if the violence against women is ramped up, and that this becomes another political hockey puck, just to be hit from one side of a field to another, and see who can make buck out of it.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple that made me angry.
Yeah.
When I wrote, and I think maybe you could probably pick up that I was that it made me angry. So I think that was definitely one. I suppose the hypocrisy just galled me, or
Yeah.
continues to. It's just lip service, and I think it's they must stop talking about what they're doing and actually start showing us what they're doing.
Yeah. I think your next book should be called 50 Ways to Leave Your Money, because every time I see Cricket South Africa is now looking, we're hosting the 2027 Cricket World Cup, and they're looking for 400 million rand to now upgrade stadiums. And the first thing that went through my head is the tenderpreneurs are already sharpening their pencils. It's not a case of where is the money coming from? It's a case of where's the money going to and how fast, you know. This is it. Money seems to vanish, and it's always in millions or billions. It's never, look, we need 1,000
staggering
rand.
amounts.
It is. It's amounts that make your eyes bleed, literally. If I walked into my bank and said, listen, I'm putting X amount in my bank account, they'd leap up and down. And then they'd go, who did you steal this from? And pay back the money never happens unless you some poor sod that they can stick in jail. But the people at the top are just pocketing money hand over fist. And I think we as South Africans are starting to learn this, but there's almost nothing we can do about it. You know, we're on a very slippery slope, and it's just getting steeper and steeper. And the people with the baskets at the bottom going, thank you very much. I'll just put this into, and this is no bullshit, I'm putting it into an offshore account. We remember back in the days of apartheid, was it Dr. Diedrichs who had the Swiss bank account and was siphoning money off. Eshel Rudy, who siphoned money from Eskom. Where is he today? And he's 12 million rand. I mean, that was big money then, and now we laugh. 12 million rand. Nobody gets out of bed to steal 12 million rand. Book is called Bullshit. 50 Fibs that made South Africa, made them, didn't break them. We're a resilient, really and truly are. It's published by Jonathan Ball. It is available, people say, at all good bookshops. It's also available at bad bookshops. It's available in your corner cafe. It's available wherever you steal your books. It may even be available at secondhand bookstores already by reviewers who've read the book and gone, don't like this. Let's fob it off. Is it available online yet, Jonathan?
Yes, it is. It's I think Take a Lot and Loot and all of those.
Right.
And there's even an audio book, and Rebecca Davis narrates it, and she's done just such a great job.
Okay, because people don't realize voicing a book is not easy, because you've got to get the voice of the author in your head. It's not how you perceive the book, it's how they want it to be perceived. Jonathan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm thoroughly enjoying reading this book. I'm dragging it out because, like all good books, I don't want it to finish before I get an email from your publishers going, Volume 2 is available, David.
Get more bullshit.
Get more bullshit, even more bullshit.
Even more bullshit.
This could go on ad nauseum. It really and truly could. My guest today on In Conversation With has been Jonathan Ancer. We've been talking about his book called Bullshit, published by Jonathan Ball and currently available. It's a great read, and I suggest that you use it before you vote on the 29th. Jonathan, thanks so much for being a guest. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate it.
Bye for now.